Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. This time I'm watching What Happened to Old London Bridge by Mapman. I'm not sure if Old London Bridge is the name of the bridge or if it's supposed to be an older version of the London Bridge. The British are confusing. Let's just watch what this is about.
Why is London Bridge called London Bridge?
Because it's in London.
But there are lots of bridges in London.
London Bridge was the first.
But it looks really modern.
It's probably important.
Are there lots of really interesting things about London Bridge and its history and its future that unravel into a medium-sized documentary about the River Thames and its crossings in general?
So it is important.
Yes.
The River Thames is the reason London exists. Back in the year 43, the Romans chose...
Hold on.
The River Thames is the reason London exists.
Why is there no bridges on the other
43,
side of
the
it?
Romans chose
There's
this
only
spot to
bridges
build
on
a
one
bridge
side.
and found their city of Londinium, connected by road to the rest of Britain and by sea to the rest of the world.
Well, there's nothing
So the
physical
Romans
left
founded
of
it.
the Roman
History, the Romans chose this spot to build a...
It's thanks to the Roman bridge that modern London is where it is today. Here.
After the Romans left, various temporary wooden bridges came and went on this site. Probably. But it wasn't until 1209 when along came a proper permanent one made of stone. And it was a corker.
Like many bridges in medieval Europe, London
What
Bridge
is
was
that?
a living bridge with shops, houses,
looks
a
like-
church, and
yeah,
tiny
there's
people
houses
made
on it.
plasticine.
The roadway was so narrow and the roofs on the buildings stuck out so far that the dark passageway felt almost like a tunnel. At its most
Houses on a
congested,
bridge.
it could
I
take
mean,
an hour to get across.
I
To manage
guess
congestion, the city corporation charged a toll to cross the bridge.
having houses on a bridge could be useful just because it's technically more space, but at the same time, you're blocking the bridge, which is the only way to cross from one side to the other. So it seems like a bad idea to just have people living there.
And ordered that all northbound traffic use the west side and all southbound use the east side. This may be the origin of why we now drive on the left in Britain.
I just checked. And
Oh.
it isn't.
We
No,
now drive on the left
it's
in
not.
Britain.
I just checked and it isn't. One disappointing thing about the otherwise brilliant...
Why do they drive on the left? Just be normal like everyone else and drive on the right side of the road.
London Bridge was, for many centuries, the only bridge in London, which is surprising given how many thousands of people lived and worked on both sides of the river. So why was it like this for so long?
That bridge must have been
The Bridge
full
House
of people the
Estates,
entire
which ran
time.
London Bridge on behalf of the City of London Corporation, made a great deal of money from the tolls, and they were keen to keep it that way.
In 1664, when King Charles
Like
II
always,
started
it's
making
all
plans to build
about
his own
money.
bridge over the Thames, the city corporation persuaded him to forget about it with a free loan, open brackets, massive bribe, close brackets, of £100,000. Despite the stronghold the city
£100,000
corporation's
back then
stronghold
must have
over the
been
river, London got
way
on
more.
absolutely fine with just the one bridge.
That must be a couple
Because,
million
rather
pounds
bizarrely,
today.
most Londoners never used it.
Unless you had a horse and cart full of heavy stuff, why bother using the expensive and slow London Bridge when you can simply hop on a wherry?
Wherries, pronounced
I mean, that
wherries,
is
were long,
true.
thin boats that could carry up to 5 people.
Unless you have
The streets
cargo,
of
you
London
don't
were so
need a bridge.
congested that a wherry was often the fastest way to get around town, whether you needed to cross the river or not. The men who rode the wherries, the watermen, were the taxi drivers of their day. They had to know the locations of all the stairs and the times when the tide came in and out. In their heyday, there were more than 10,000 of them on the river.
And so London remained
10,000?
merrily monobridged
I guess
throughout
there was a
the
lot of
13th,
people.
14th, 15th, 16th and 17th century. And that was fine by everybody. Until...
In 1720, the Prime Minister Robert Walpole was in a rush to get back to Westminster for an important debate in Parliament after visiting the King. When he arrived at the Fulham Horse Ferry, the watermen were having a pint on the opposite side of the river, and they refused to come across until they'd finished their drink. Walpole missed the debate, and from that day declared war on the river.
This is all
Declared war on the river.
Walpole presented a bill to Parliament making the legislation to allow new bridges over the Thames for the first time, whether the City Corporation or the watermen liked it or not, which led to London finally getting its bridge number 2, right outside the Houses of Parliament.
Westminster
So yeah, the
Bridge
name
opened in
London Bridge is just
1750,
because it was
bringing
the only
London
bridge
Bridge's
in the
centuries-old
city.
monopoly to an end. Not everyone was happy about this. The city corporation demanded compensation, so the Crown gave them compensation, which they used to get revenge on Westminster Bridge by building Blackfriars Bridge in 1769, giving Londoners a whopping 3 bridges to choose from.
That's still
Crossing
not
by
that
bridge
much.
had now become a lot easier and faster and more normal than crossing by wherry.
This was bad news for the watermen, who were already having a really tough time with the closure of the theatres on the South Bank.
At this
it was
point,
the
quit.
beginning of the end for the wherries.
Yeah.
But amazingly, they never disappeared.
Your jobs are no longer
Hundreds
secure.
of years later, the company of watermen and lightermen is still around today, and they still stage a protest whenever a new bridge is proposed. How's that going for you? London was growing up, and it was time to say goodbye to the old-fashioned traditional things that were holding it back. And that
Yeah, the
included
British are
London
very
Bridge
weird.
itself.
Protest
Over the
because of a
centuries,
bridge.
London Bridge had become a medieval relic. that was
That's
far
worse
too
than the
narrow for
French.
18th century
No,
traffic. The
I
bridge
take that
needed a
back.
makeover.
Nobody is worse than the French
So
when
in
it comes to protesting.
1761, to make a bit more room, the Bridge House Estates decided to remove the houses and shops from the bridge.
But it was no good. The structure was still a crumbling death trap that needed repairing every 5 minutes, as made famous in the nursery rhyme Humpty Dumpty. The whole thing had to go.
Okay, I'm looking at this on Wikipedia and I see London Bridge is falling down, but I see absolutely nothing about Humpty Dumpty here. You know what, actually, I don't care enough to keep searching for it. Fuck it.
Go.
Waste of time.
And so, in 1831, Old London Bridge was replaced by New London Bridge, designed by a father and son team, both called John Rennie.
To avoid disruption and ease construction, New London Bridge was built slightly to the left of where the Old London Bridge was.
So it was just
If you
built
look
right
carefully
next
at the
to
modern
it.
map, you can clearly see how the old streets line up to show exactly where the Old London
yeah?
Bridge used to be. London's bridgevolution was only just beginning. In the 19th century, with London's population swelling faster than ever on both sides of the river, new bridges were being thrown across the Thames one after the other like kerplunk. Bridges for people, horses, and these new things called trains too. London just couldn't get enough of them. Bridges, 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 bridges.
Okay,
London
that's a
Bridge
bit
wasn't
much.
special anymore. It blended in with all the others, getting on with its job in a no-nonsense sort
But
of
it was
way.
the first bridge.
After 100
Although technically this is New London Bridge, so this
really
is
that long.
not the
London
first.
Bridge already found itself once again in a bit of a pickle.
By the 1960s, London had turned into a car city. To make room for all the commuters that wanted to use it, London Bridge would need to at least triple in width.
The City Corporation once again had the expensive task of building a modern bridge in place of the old one. But the trouble was, in the 20th century, it was much harder to raise the huge amount of money needed for this sort of project. And so, they made the unusual but ingenious decision to put the Two Rennies Bridge up for sale.
Brochures and TV ads were produced, offering a unique piece of British
They-
history to the highest bidder. The highest bidder was American produced.
They
Decision to
sold
put the Two
pieces
Rennies
of the
Up
bridge?
for sale.
Brochures and TV ads were produced, offering a unique piece of British history to the highest bidder. The highest bidder was American oil tycoon and chainsaw manufacturer Robert P. McCulloch, who had the old London Bridge shipped across the Atlantic brick by brick and put back together in Lake Havasu City, Arizona, where it's become something of a tourist attraction. There's a famously not
serious?
true at all urban myth that McCulloch thought he was buying the much more famous and impressive Tower Bridge and bought the wrong
Okay.
bridge by mistake. And that's where we get the expression, I bought the wrong bridge by mistake.
Not all of London Bridge went to our...
That's where
Hold on, I
he was
need to-
buying the
I need
thing of a
to-
tourist attraction.
Hear that again.
There's a famously not true at all urban myth that McCulloch thought he was buying the much more famous and impressive Tower Bridge and bought the wrong bridge by mistake. And that's where we get the expression, I bought the wrong bridge by mistake.
So,
Not
so he
all of London
actually
Bridge
bought
went to
a
Arizona.
bridge.
These steps and this arch from the Rennies Bridge are still here and here today on the South Bank. Whilst it's great that some of the Rennies Bridge has been kept alive, its modern replacement is a structure best described as a shame.
The necessary rebuild of London Bridge in the late 60s coincided with a flash-in-the-pan fashion for brutalist functional architecture. New London Bridge, completed in 1973, is a wide, grey concrete slab devoid of even the slightest hint of its rich history. It's impressive for the sheer amount of nothing
I
there
mean,
is
yeah,
to say about
true,
it.
but
With
it
London
looks
Bridge getting more boring
looks
every
okay.
century, the next
It gets
one
the
coming in
job done.
2182
The point
will
of a
likely
bridge
be
is to
made
get
entirely
across. Who
of
cares
very
how it
shaped-
looks?
Yep,
It's
I think that's
practical.
everything
That's
I can
all
think
that
of about London
matters.
Bridge, but London does of course have many more bridges, and there are lots of interesting things to say about them too. So if you're not busy, join me next time for another thrilling instalment of Unfinished London.
Oh, that's it?
When I want to access the internet from another country,
Yeah, that's it. So old London Bridge was replaced with New London Bridge, which was then replaced with an even newer London Bridge, and one of the London bridges was sold brick by brick to someone in the United States. Pure and utter nonsense. That's the only way I can call this. I mean, buying a bridge. Is there any other word than nonsense that could be used to describe that? I don't think so. I know they have he has another video on why there are no bridges on, I think it was the west side or the east side of London, something like that. And I'm curious, so I'll watch that soon enough. Yeah, why there are no bridges in East London? I kind of feel like I know why now. It's probably because they just weren't allowed to make any more. And maybe East London had like a lower population, so there was no need. They could just use the bridges in West London. Maybe, I don't know. Anyway, leave a like, subscribe, comment, you know, the usual YouTube stuff, and I'll see you in the next video.